Is this Angel?
Yes, it is.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
What got you to respond to my ad?
I was just looking through Craigslist and curious about trying to find people to go hiking with and just finding more ways to connect with people. And I came across yours and I was curious about it. And so I'm in a place right now where I feel pretty comfortable with sharing where I'm at in my situation. So I gave it a chance and responded.
Psychotropic presents Angel.
Well, I'm newly in recovery, so I'm a single mom of 4 boys. My 3 youngest just recently moved to South Dakota to live with their dad. I got involved with CPS, and due to the circumstances, they are living in South Dakota now. My situation, I'm involved in family treatment court, and they are the ones that kind of have guided me through my recovery and helped me get my treatment and introduced me to meetings and NA and sobriety, basically. So my addiction has changed over the course of time, like every year. So if I quit one drug, I usually pick up another drug. So it went from pain pills to heroin to meth to alcohol. I have been sober from alcohol since February, from methamphetamines January, and from heroin 2015. Right now, I feel like I have a great support system. I have my family involved now, which they weren't always, but they are a great part of my support system. And I have actually a team of people, and I feel like my recovery is going really well. I'm actually really excited to, get more involved and find new friends. And basically my lifestyle change is amazing right now. So yeah, I just hope to share my, strength and hope to other people as well. I feel like as a child and a young adult, I didn't really learn coping skills to my feelings. And so as an adult, I find myself attached to certain behaviors that kind of help me in the moment with dealing with my emotions. That's what I'm learning so far. So if, for example, my addictive personality, if it wasn't even drugs, it could be my cell phone. And usually it means, like, if I spend the majority of my time on my cell phone, usually means I'm trying to avoid something in my real life, which is not a really good coping skill. So, especially if it's something that I really like, I could see myself getting obsessed with it.
Why do you attribute that to childhood?
So as a mom of 4 boys, my goal is to recognize their feelings and helping them learn how to get through certain emotions, anger, sadness. And if I look back to my childhood, I never experienced that. So I had a really good childhood. I had really good parents, but unfortunately, I never experienced any breakthrough lessons, life lessons to get me through emotional situations. And so as an adult, I I got addicted to pain pills after breaking an ankle, and I found myself wanting to numb emotions because I didn't know how to work through pain or anger a lot. So I look back at my childhood, and I guess I just didn't learn any of that when I was little. My mom is really protective. She doesn't like to see her children upset or sad, and so she tried really hard to make sure that we weren't sad. I'm talking about me and my brother. And I was kind of sheltered from like any problems in my life, so I have a really great stepdad who I have a great relationship with. I could always communicate feelings, and he always had a lot of encouragement and positive feedback for me. My mom, she just was really good at sheltering me from any trauma. So, like, let's say there was a kid bullying me at school, and I just remember going to her, being really sad, and she always took care of the problem. She took care of a lot of my problems, but I just didn't understand that it was going to affect me later in life.
Can you describe your childhood a little bit?
It was nothing but sports. Soccer and softball. I'm really petite, so I'm only 4'10", and I just remember being really fast. I was in track. I had a paper route at age 11 that I would time myself every day doing. I was a climber. Like, I just always wanted to be the best at everything. I was really competitive, but in a really, I loved being part of a team. So I feel like I worked really hard at being active. Maybe that was a part of an addictive personality as well. My mom and my real dad separated when I was about 2, and my real dad is actually a meth addict today and has been using drugs since I was little. I don't really remember him too much. He was in my life in and out, but I had a really good stepdad, so he filled a lot of the void. And I don't remember having too many emotional feelings around my real dad.
What was your first drug experience?
Marijuana, 13. I've always been really curious about things I'm not supposed to be doing. And so my mom used to tell me if I drank, smoked, or had sex, my pacemaker would blow up. I think she just did it to scare me. Like, that was just, I don't know. So I guess 11 is when I had a cigarette, so that would be the first drug. And I remember smoking, and nothing happened to me, and I was like, it's on. Like, I'm going to do everything I can now that I'm not supposed to do. I also hung out with older people, and I lived in low income at the time, so there were kids of all ages around me, and I always hung out with the older crowd. And I started learning about marijuana and really, really wanted to try it. So I did, and I missed 14 houses on my paper route that day.
After that marijuana experience, were you interested in other things?
I mean, I was really interested in boys, but no other drugs. And smoking cigarettes when I could. And by the time I was 15, I was dating an older boy, and I got sent away to Spokane to live with my aunt for a year. But the experience ended up teaching me a lot. While I was there, I found a friend who, her and her dad smoked marijuana, so I was getting high like all the time. And I didn't look at it as a negative thing either. I just never thought there was a problem with marijuana until recently, to be honest. So part of my program now, I have to identify marijuana as a drug and a mind-altering substance. And so, but to be honest, marijuana was never an issue, I felt like. I got addicted to pain pills after breaking my ankle, and after being on them for a month, I think that I developed an addiction not even knowing about it. I felt like they gave me energy, they helped me get through my workday, because at the end of the day, my ankle was always in pain. And that's, of course, because I didn't let it heal right. It also made me feel like very powerful. I felt invincible almost, like I could do anything and never get tired. And then I had some traumatic things happen. I had my kid's dad. When I was pregnant with my third, and it would be his second, I walked in on him and another woman 5 days before I delivered, and like everything came crashing down. And again, I've never had any trauma happen in my life, and I was not pregnant, or I was not using during my pregnancy, but that was the first thing I automatically wanted to do, was use pain pills. And at the time, heroin was starting to come around, and people were describing it as the same thing as a pain pill, but I was so exhausted from my emotions, and I just wanted to get through my work day, and throughout, through the rest of my day, that's all I could think about was pain pills. And I just decided to try heroin, and within a couple weeks, I was physically addicted to it, and it did help me numb things temporarily, and I thought that was amazing. Like, I didn't have to feel anything for a little while. It was like surreal. It was amazing to not feel as sad as I knew that I should have been.
Can you describe the first time you remember getting high on pills?
Okay, so let me tell you, I have had over 20 surgeries in my lifetime, and I have a pacemaker. I got it when I was 3 weeks old, and during my surgeries growing up, I never understood pain pills. So my mom did a really good job managing that for me. So this time around, being 23 and breaking my ankle, I was independent. I was a single mom with a 3-year-old. I managed it myself, but I was really worried that I was a barista, and I was really worried that I was going to lose my job. I took 2 weeks off, and that was it. And I think by the end of the 2 weeks, I had a really high tolerance all of a sudden. And I just remember not feeling pain in my ankle. Like, I was just walking around in this boot like my ankle was healing already, when reality is I should have took 2 months off and let it naturally heal. I remember being at work early in the mornings, and I just was in a fast-paced environment, and I could take all of it on by myself, and that was amazing for me. And I could keep going, and I wasn't tired. And if I started to feel pain in my ankle, I would just pop another 2 or 3, and the pain pills were, there was no limit really at that time. Like, I was getting prescription every 4 days, so.
How long were you using pills and heroin before you started realizing it was a problem?
I was using pain pills for about 8 years, and after they cut me off 6 months after my surgery on my ankle, it was really easy to find on the street. So I didn't really identify that it was a problem then. It wasn't until people started getting cut off on prescriptions and it was harder to find did I feel like maybe I had a problem. But I was still in denial, and that was probably about 5 years in. I started using heroin in 2012, and it became a problem right away. I remember getting my tax return And this happened 2 years in a row, and my tax return was like $7,000, and it was gone in 2 months, mostly spent on heroin that me and my kids' dad used. So I managed like heroin until April of 2014. I was living in low income, and my kids' dad was working, so we would use his paychecks and not tell anybody that he was living with me. So I was paying like zero in rent and used his paychecks to buy heroin, and it was like $50 to $100 a day. And I remember it was about a couple months using that I experienced my first withdrawal, and I didn't even know what withdrawals were. So that's the weird thing is I never withdrawed off of pain pills, or did I even recognize it or understand it. And I don't know why. I don't know if it was because maybe I would just get $100 worth and then go a couple weeks without. I'm not really sure. But I didn't understand withdrawals. And so I do remember my first withdrawal. I thought I had the flu, and I remember I was really cold and shaky, but yet I was sweaty. I thought I was running a fever, but it took my temperature and there was no fever. And then finally I realized that I was having withdrawals, and it was torture. And then we vowed to never use heroin again. But of course, a couple weeks later, we would buy it again. And that went on for about 2 years. And we were living paycheck to paycheck, and we were buying daily. So we made up with our dealer daily because we could only afford $50 to $100 a day. He started like scrapping metal. We would ask money from my parents, and they didn't like recognize it right away. And it wasn't until April 2014 where I was so miserable, and I had tried to quit a couple times and it just wasn't working, that I finally went to my parents and told them I was a heroin addict. And by then, they had already had suspicion, and they were asking around, like, what's wrong with me? Why is she isolating? They tried going to my kids' dad because they didn't see the signs in him. And they tried asking, and he would reassure them that I was fine. And then I just had a breakdown, and they ended up sending me to treatment in 2014 in California. I went to treatment for 3 months and came home. I was clean about 6 months, and then realized that my kid's dad had been using the entire time. And so I relapsed, and I didn't stop using until March of 2015.
Can you describe how you gravitated towards meth?
It was something that I had done it a few times, like a couple times in the past in my early 20s, and didn't really understand it. Maybe I didn't do enough or something, but a lot of people were using it with the heroin. And by the way, I'm not an IV user. I only smoked it. But I noticed a lot of people would use meth to wake up, and after they've been down for a little while. So I started using a little bit of meth at the end of my heroin use to kind of wake up and to take care of the house, or clean house, or take care of kids, but always was strictly on heroin. So another part of my story is I got on methadone 2015. That's how I got off heroin. And so I was on methadone for a year, and I was clean. Only did the methadone treatment. I went to the clinic daily, but when I started withdrawing off of the methadone, so after a year and a half of being on it, I did not want to be on methadone anymore. I thought it was torture, felt trapped. I felt like it was no different than heroin. I was surrounded by people who did not want to get off of it. It was just an environment that was just as miserable. So the withdrawals off the methadone kept me down for a couple weeks, and I had a neighbor who had meth available, and along with alcohol, I just got a little bit, and then I got a little bit more, And then the next thing you know it, I was doing it daily. Yeah, at first I used it to try to ease the withdrawal pain, like the pain from it, and then it just turned into full-blown using meth and alcohol. So I would use a little bit of meth in the morning, and this is now going on 2016 after I withdrawals from methadone, and I would use a little bit of meth in the morning, and then I would drink at night to go to sleep, because I knew if I didn't go to sleep, then I'd start getting crazy. I just got really weird. Like, I started getting paranoid and stopped eating, that kind of thing. Meth psychosis, like, I'd been in it a couple times, and it was not a good experience. My kids probably saw a really scary person. Like, I was just frantically cleaning the house and thought people were outside and, yeah, spying on me. So,
Your kids were around while you were using them?
yes. And actually, so my 4-year-old, I was pregnant and used all the way up until I was 7 months. Heroin.
Did everything turn out all right with him?
Yeah. Thankfully, he doesn't show any signs. I don't know if there's any long-term damages, but so far he's excelling. And during the services that I was receiving, I was open about that with everybody that I had used during my pregnancy.
Can you describe how you felt and what you would do while you were using with the children around?
Let me see. I definitely did not put them first. So I was so obsessed with my kids' dad on where he was at, who he was talking to, because of the infidelity and not trusting him, but also drugs kept a connection between us. So that's another reason why I felt like I was using, is because that was one thing that kept us connected. So even without, I neglected their needs. They were a problem for me to do what I wanted to do, and at the time I wanted to obsess on what my kids' dad was doing. Unfortunately, I did not nurture them like I should have. And they were so little. They were, newborn and 2 years old and 3 years old. So, and then my oldest, who's going to be 14, he was, 6 and 7, 8 years old, and he went from being a really active child with this great imagination to really reserved and like introverted now. So he was exposed to a lot.
Can you describe your mindset leading into you deciding to get clean?
Okay, so the kids' dad moved to South Dakota in 2015. This is the year I was on methadone. And then I was having trouble managing all the kids by myself. I'd never done it before without his help. And so I had volunteer CPS services. They came in, helped me organize my house. They offered in-house counseling, speech therapy for my youngest, and they were all really positive experiences. So by the time I was going through a downward spiral in the end of 2016, so like around Thanksgiving, Christmas time, I was so depressed that I wanted to get help, but I just didn't know how to ask for it. I was really scared of what would happen to my kids, and I expressed to one of my very best friends and I basically told her what I was doing, and I had mentioned that CPS offered services and maybe they could help me again without me getting in trouble, right? So this was after Christmas, New Year's, that I expressed this to her, and within the same week, CPS knocked on my door. And after a week of them investigating, the kids ended up going to live with my mom. I had a really poor attitude about things because it wasn't going the way that I thought it was. I thought that being honest with them and asking for help, that I would manage this without getting in trouble. And then the kids ended up going to my mom's house. I stopped using meth then, and I was drinking still a lot. So I was really upset that they weren't with me, and I was drinking nightly, and still, like, it didn't give me a desire to stop. And I didn't know how long this was going to go on for. I went into inpatient treatment for 30 days in March, and I always feel safe when I'm in treatment too, because just being in that environment is always positive. I gotta feel like I'm safe. But when I got out of treatment, I continued to drink, and that's when I got involved with Family Treatment Court. So I got involved with them because it was a program to help me get my kids back and help me be accountable for my addiction. And it was a process, so I go through stages. But I found out that my 3 youngest kids couldn't be a part of the program because their dad was fighting for them now. He was MIA since 2015. So, and he left an addict as well. So it was an emotional roller coaster. I kind of worked a program. I kind of surrendered. I failed, a couple UAs, and I was still drinking periodically, using sneaky behavior, not wanting to tell anybody that I was drinking. So I'd drink like on a Thursday night because I knew I didn't have to UA till like Monday or Tuesday. And so I knew the alcohol would be out of my system. It wasn't until recently, so relapsing with meth in January and alcohol in February, we were coming down to crunch time with my oldest. So my 3 youngest moved to South Dakota in January. So that happened. And then my lawyer basically looked at me and said, shit, or get off the pot. Like, work a program, stay sober, or you're going to lose your oldest. And yeah, and so I've been clean since 2/21. And I've actually taken my program seriously. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. I have a sponsor. I am involved with NA. I do community service. I never miss a treatment. I never miss a UA. And more has happened for me in the last couple months than it has, ever before. So, like, I truly believe in this program and working a program and making a lifestyle change. And so that's where I'm at the moment. I just have gone through so much. I'm just so happy to be in a place right now where there's healing and growth, and that makes me like the better angel, because I honestly felt so immature, and I was codependent, codependent on my parents a little bit, and then I grew codependent on my kid's dad. So understanding that whole situation and now growing and healing from everything makes me feel more independent, like I have a voice and I like myself again. It's been a long time since I've liked myself. So I just feel like I'm in a really good place right now. And I have a lot of people to thank for, like even though I'm in the system, CPS or whatever, like I wouldn't be here today if somebody didn't step in. And thank God somebody did. I wouldn't have said that 6 months ago. I was still really mad. Like, being in the system, I just thought it was effed up because I asked for help and look what you guys did and blame. And I was still really angry, but I feel really grateful right now.
Can you describe the difference between your lifestyle then and your lifestyle now?
My lifestyle then was choose the easy road and do what was easiest and take advantage of, the system because I was a mom. So work under the table. I did not want to do any hard work. I also did not look at myself as someone who had any flaws. I really felt like my opinions and my decisions were the right way, and I was really closed-minded. So now to see it at a different perspective and have a different mindset feels good. Like, I don't feel so immature anymore. So there for a little bit, I was like, why do I feel like I'm not maturing? But I don't feel so much like that anymore. I definitely feel like hard work pays off. I feel like in being open-minded and mindful of other people. So that's the one thing that I really enjoy most right now is helping other people, like service work. So right now, Tuesdays and Thursday mornings, I serve breakfast to the homeless. And like I've been in their shoes, so I don't judge them. And that's so important. Like not being judged feels so good and has helped me. The people that I'm surrounded by aren't judging me. And so that has helped my confidence a lot. And that hasn't always been the case.
How do you feel when you think of other people who haven't tried substances? How do you feel when you think of them looking for and wanting to try substances?
Wanting to try? Like people who are like...
Well, like when you were a little kid, you wanted to try marijuana.
Okay, because I still have my opinion about people who are normies that are my age. Like I have opinions about that, which I try not to be judgmental, but I
No,
get really
please do
frustrated.
tell.
Okay? I get really frustrated because people can be really freaking mean. And, like, I have my own journey. And so when people are so, especially on social media when they're like drug addicts should die and they're just, let them die, it just hurts my heart so much because we're not bad people, like I know that there's a lot of crime around it and we're just in survival mode, but I just, it hurts when people have no compassion. I don't like people who have strong, arrogant opinions. When they're like one-minded, they just have one mindset. It took me a really long time to get my parents involved in my recovery. They wanted to send me away and get fixed. And they believed that addiction was a choice. Yeah, it's a choice to a certain extent, but, when you accidentally get addicted to something, it turns into a disease. A disease is a damage of an organ, and your brain is an organ. And when my brain was being damaged, it was not functional like a normal person. So it turns into a disease. I couldn't grow. I couldn't mature. I couldn't learn new things. I couldn't take on information. Like, it sucked. And it was very depressing because deep down I knew it. I knew that there was nothing I could offer my kids when it came to teaching them life skills and tools because I was like disappearing. So that's what I have about that. I feel like people who are normies should be educated. There's a lot of people that have addiction in their life, even though they're not addicted. They have experienced addiction in their home. So I've had counselors that have been really kind to me, even though they might not be addicts. They have experienced it. And so I always appreciate somebody who just has compassion for another human being and doesn't judge somebody else. I'm still working my way around that and trying to learn how to cope with that and not let those emotions affect me so much because I feel so strongly about them. When it comes to, like, influence on kids, I plan on being completely open and honest with my kids. I'm going to say, this is what I did. This is how it effed me up. Like, this is how depressing it was. This is where it took me. It was torture. Like, I just plan to just keep talking about it. Like, I think it really bothered me because my mother, she didn't share that kind of stuff with me. And so I never felt like I could go to her and talk to her about anything, sex, drugs, nothing. So with my boys, I hope that they have enough information by the time that they get to that point of wanting, where they're around it or offered it, any kind of alcohol or drugs, that they have enough information. Of course, I can't stop them, but I can, I don't know, just right now I can just be their role model, I guess, as somebody in recovery, like maybe explaining my darkest place to where I'm at right now and how hard of a work, it's such hard work, and it doesn't have to be like that. So my 13-year-old's going to be 14, and he's obviously been exposed to a lot. He is a gamer, so he isolates himself. He doesn't really hang out socially with any friends right now. But he knows everything that's going on. Like, I tell him everything. I tell him when I relapsed. I tell him, this is what's going to happen. Here are my consequences, good or bad. And he listens. He hasn't really shared his opinion about it much lately, but at least I know he's listening.
Do the two of you have a good relationship?
Yes. So I just moved into my parents' house in February to kind of get stable. So I just had my own apartment. Unfortunately, I was isolating, which was part of my relapses, is when I isolate. I'm not involving myself in my program or working a program. So I made the decision to move into my parents after 17 years of not living with them. It was really scary, but it's worked out really well. He lives here, and it was like when I moved in, he opened up. Like, he doesn't talk to me much, but he hangs out with me. So he doesn't really talk to my parents. But I will go in and play foosball with him and game with him a little bit. I take him where I need to go. I take him to meetings sometimes. So at first, when I just started taking him to meetings, he thought the people in the rooms were all on drugs. He was really confused, and I had to explain to him, no. These people are healing and recovering. So I like that he listens to people when we go to meetings as well. He never says no to them, so we bond. But I am at the point right now where I'm doing so much internal work on myself, like mental health. I have a chemical dependency counselor. I have group 2 days a week. I'm doing MRT, which is moral recognition therapy. It's for people who usually get out of prison, but it's been amazing doing that therapy. I Seeking Safety, which is a program that focuses on PTSD and addiction and how they relate to each other. So a lot of the times I have to remember, he needs my attention right now. So I am thankful for my parents for providing a roof over our heads and food in our mouths, but I try to make at least one day out of the week where I take them to the movies, just one-on-one attention for now. I can't wait till, it's more than that, but I think he understands what I can offer so far.
What do you have going for the rest of the day?
I am packing, so tomorrow I leave to Montana to pick up my 3 younger boys. They're coming home for the summer. So I'm pretty excited. Yeah, their dad is meeting me in Montana, and then I'll be driving for the next 2 days.
This episode was produced by me, Philip Johnson. Music was written, produced, and generously donated by VoxMod. Look for his music on Spotify, iTunes, and voxmod.com. A list of all songs used can be found in the description section of this episode. If you liked what you heard today, please subscribe. Also, leave a review. I'd really appreciate it. Lastly, if you have a story and you'd like to share it, I'd love to hear it. You can email me at psychotropicpodcast@hotmail.com. Thanks again, everybody. See you next time.